Today we're going to be doing section 5.2, which starts on page 225. And today we're going to be adding and subtracting like fractions. And our objective today is students will and I'm just going to draw an arrow, add and subtract like fractions. When we talk about like fractions, what we really mean is that the denominators are like each other. These are actually the easiest fractions to add. When you add or subtract fractions, the denominators have to be the same. So if the denominators are already like each other, if they're already the same, then those are the easiest kind to do. So for example, let's say that we have 77 100ths and we want to add 9 100ths to it. Because they're both 100s, you can go ahead and add them together. Now what you do is the denominator stays the same. 100ths is the size of the pieces, and you have 77 of them. You also have 9 of those same sized pieces. So the size of the piece stays the same. You're still talking about 100ths, but now you have more of them. You had 77, you have 9 more. You now have 86 pieces, 86 100ths. If your answer can be simplified, you have to do that as well. So what's the number that goes into 86 and 100? Well, they're both even, so they must be divisible by 2. So I'm going to make this 43 out of 50, and that's simplified. So that would be my final answer. Okay? So when you add fractions, as long as they have common denominators, you leave the denominator the same, you can add the tops, the numerators. Okay? Let's try a subtraction problem. Let's do negative 4 sevenths minus 2 sevenths. Okay? The denominators are the same. The answer of your denominator stays the same. It's also sevenths. Now in this scenario, you're subtracting. Now you owe me 4. You also owe me 2. You owe me 4, you owe me 2. That means you owe me 6. My answer is negative 6 sevenths. And that's completely simplified, so you're done. That would be your final answer. Now, adding and subtracting is a little bit more difficult when you move into the mixed numbers. So let me show you a mixed number example. Okay. Let's try something like this. Let's try 5 and 5 ninths plus 7, 2 and 7 ninths. What I want to show you is how to change these into improper fractions and then add them together. This is actually a fairly easy example, but eventually we're going to be doing ones that have negative numbers in them, which makes it a little bit more difficult. The easiest way to work with them is to make them improper. So even though this one's maybe a little bit easier, I'm going to show you how to do it using improper numbers. Okay? So let's make this into improper fractions. 9 times 5 is 45, plus 5 is 50 ninths. Your denominator stays the same. Over here we have 9 times 2, which is 18. 18 plus 7 is 25 ninths. And now I want to add them together. Okay? My denominator is going to remain ninths. I have 50 ninths and 25 ninths. That means I now have 75 ninths. And you cannot leave your answer as an improper fraction, so we're going to make that into a mixed number. 9 can go into 75. How many times? 8. 9 times 8 is 72, so we actually have 3 left over, and our denominator stays the same. And now 3 ninths, I can also simplify that. That would be 1/3. So my answer, my final answer, is 8 1/3. Okay? Let's try another example with maybe some more difficult numbers in it. Let's do negative 10 and 6/13 minus 6 and 8/13. Okay? I'm going to make these improper. This is going to be 13 times 10 is 130, plus 6 is 136/13 minus 13 times 6 is 78, and then I'm going to add 8 to that, so that's 86/13. Okay. Now from there, my final answer is going to remain 13ths. I owe 136. I owe 86. It means I owe it all. My answer is definitely going to be negative, but the number is going to be bigger. So if I add these two together, I owe 122. Okay. And then I can't leave it improper. So I'm going to owe, 13 goes into 122 how many times? If you don't know, you want to take your best guess. I'm going to guess 9 because 10 times would be 130. So I'm going to guess 9. Now I have to figure out what 13 times 9 is to see how much I have left. 9 times 3 is 27. That's 117. But I had 122. So I actually have 5 left. And 5/13, you can't simplify that. So my final answer is negative 9 and 5/13. Okay? Now I've shown you how to add and subtract fractions that have like denominators. I've shown you how to add and subtract mixed numbers that have like denominators. Now we're going to throw the monomials in there. We're going to add letters and variables into the problem. This will be our last example for tonight. Okay? So let's do something like this. Negative 8 over 3b minus negative 2 over 3b. Okay? Now, first of all, the first thing I see is subtract a negative. I know that I can actually add the opposite, so I'm going to change this to add the opposite. I think that'll make the problem easier for me. Now my denominators are like each other. They're both 3b. I know the answer will then have a denominator of 3b. Remember, the denominator always stays the same. Now on the top, I owe 8 and I have 2. That means I'm going to owe 6. Now remember, when you're finished, you always have to simplify. This is kind of like the simplifying we did in the last chapter. If I have negative 6 and 3, I'm going to have negative 6/3 is really 2. So I'm going to have a 2 on the top, and I'm going to have a b on the bottom. Negative 2b would be my most simplified answer. Please write down any questions that you have. We'll do a couple more guided practice problems together tomorrow, and we'll also go through your questions.